I do a lot of videos on this channel about mistakes I've made on models or things I could improve on, or, learning through failure. And I haven't actually done any sort of practical uh, paint on camera footage yet, so I thought this would be good practice and just show the way I can do things. So I've had this Kapool sitting around for a while. Actually, a Momokapool from the Build Fighters line. And I've done the no grade 90s 144 scale Kapool from Turn A Gundam, which is the only Turn A Gundam Kapool that exists, or Double Zeta Kapool. It's kind of a neglected mobile suit, but I'm a huge fan of it. One of my favorites, if not my favorite. So this Build Fighters version is a lot different, despite being quite similar. It has sort of like duck fin feet and more high gog or penguin style hands. It has like a little like fake tuxedo shirt thing that's also supposed to look like a penguin face a little bit in here, is the idea. It's a cutesy redesign made for the show Build Fighters, Build Divers. This guy about a year ago got some black primer, spray painted a pistachio green over it, and then I did give it like a brown wash, and I think the top is already looking okay. But I've always wanted to make this guy a little bit better. The other Kapool that I did was quite good, and I kind of want to bring this guy up to that and maybe make him even a bit better. You might not think it, but comparatively there's a little bit more surface area here to work with than the 90s Kapool kit. It's like just a tiny bit bigger, but it's pretty much the same parts. The arms are very different. These were all just one piece in the 90s kit. Here, these are all separate joints. So painting all these tubes will be fun. So the game plan here is I figure he already has a brown wash. I guess technically this would be Sochi's, and also it is a Momokapool, so either way, typically female pilot. So step one, I want to get some Xeon decals on this thing, because this is originally a Double Zeta suit that got dug up and reused in Turn A Gundam. So on the 90s no-grade Kapool I put some cheeky Xeon decals on the inside panels here. And there's a lot of area to work with here, so I'm wondering if I should freehand something or add something. Maybe I could fit a stripe under the front panels there. I'm really bad at applying stripe decals or longer ones. I'm really prone to breaking them. So we will maybe try that. The next thing is I plan to go in with a sponge and chip a little bit of rough iron on the light green and some lighter metallics on the darker bits, fingers, inner frame, etc. I'll use some other different metallics, or maybe even just normal colors to paint in these tubes or hoses here. I figure if I go too heavy on chipping anywhere, I can always go back in with this, even though it might not be the exact same match. It might all tie together. Because then I figure I'll put black washes where I need. And then I have these oil paints here, and I want to try something on this model that I haven't done, even though I do want to make this one look really good. I always want the opportunity to try something new. So I've never done dot filtering or spot filtering, where you take different colors of oil paints and kind of dot them all over. And then I believe you come in with white spirits. I'm not sure if water works. I believe you need white spirits. And after a little bit, you just streak it all in one direction, or you can blend it, and it adds a really cool effect that does make something look like it's had a lot of oil and staining on it. And then I figure after one more brown wash, I'll go in and just edge highlight, edge chip where I need to with the lightest colors. I got a really nice oil streaking effect on the vents on the other Kapool I painted, and I really need to start journaling each of my builds because I actually don't remember what I did to achieve it, so we're gonna wing it this time. And the last step on this build, I've kept this thing around for way too long. Usually I lose all my option parts. But there's this little mini that can actually sit in the head here. You know, it has like rails there, kind of, and the two pegs sit, but it can kind of just roll. And then, like a Matryoshka doll, in a weird way, when you open up this little guy here, there's actually arms and legs for this guy that you can attach, and he can stand, and there is a stand for him that I lost, but I can make a little base for him. And the idea is to have him Char pink. This is pink for Char as. And with that, that'll really make it like a Zeonic Kapool, you know, that was dug up in the correct century or the Turn A Gundam timeline. So I'm just gonna pick some decals and probably watch something, hang out and do that. Yeah, then I'll be back here when we start chipping away at this guy. So I tried to keep it pretty tasteful with these decals, just pick a few for fun. If there's a big one and some small ones next to them, I just picked the small ones and found somewhere for them to go. I put some stars on the front panel there because I thought Sochi would get some after the war, and a racing stripe to challenge myself. Some little caution signs. So usually I put a dab of dish soap on my hands and then put it in the water. I don't put dish soap directly in the water. You don't need the dish soap, but I do find it helps it slide off the sheet a lot better. I'm not going to give you a whole Waterslide tutorial. There's plenty of good ones out there. It's fairly simple, but I will say that I use a combination of John Bias's strategy and Joe Gunpla Garage's strategy. I think the Joe Gunpla Garage takeaway is spreading the setter right onto the paper and leaving it there. And yeah, just giving it all the room, all the water it needs. It gets stuck to my tweezers here, so I have to pull out the hobby knife to get it off because it's at a weird angle. Just flooding it when you need and moving it with tweezers. You can use a hobby knife as well. It's not that scary. But I would not use a hobby knife after you have softener on there, as you could pretty easily break the decal. That's a chemical meant to literally melt the decal onto the plastic. And just dabbing more water on there. And rolling from the middle of the decal out for a big one, making sure not to pull it with your Q-tip. And since it's on a curved surface, this needs a little more extra work and a little more extra setter to really get that down there on the surface. But yeah, really just slowly working it out so that you don't drag it. Making sure there's lots of softener, or sorry, setter on the stripe so it just slides right off. And I shouldn't be using my hands for this, but I do end up using my hands and it works out okay. I'm gonna go in with water anyways and kind of weigh down the edges here. The water will go under the decal, pull the decal down, and then you kind of just brush it onto the surface. And there we go, little tracksuit for the guy. Unintentional, but very cute. Alright, so unlucky for me, I lost footage earlier when I was cleaning up my storage. I was able to recover most of the water slide footage, but all my edge chipping footage I accidentally deleted. So that's a good message to clean my phone storage more often. I tried to keep it tasteful because I'm just doing the first layer of dark chipping. And that was just with a sponge. Put it on a sponge, dab the paint off. On a sock, I use a sock. Paper towel is a bit expensive right now. The tracksuit I scuffed when I was sanding down the decals to edge clean a bit, so I'm just going to treat them as scratched off, and I added some chipping there. As well as this collar. There's blue for the blaster here, so I'm going to add a little bit of chip blue here, like it was an undershirt under this sort of fake tracksuit look. Pretty good for my first pass. I just need to go in and paint some details here. I'm going to sponge chip this hose here, and just normal brush these hoses. So where they meet would be a little bit more worn down to the untreated metal, so that's what that is there. So sorry I didn't get that round of sponge chipping on there, but we're gonna go from here. You can see what I've done. So just going right for the hoses and trying to get the sides of the hoses too, so it doesn't look flat. Definitely not being too clean, because I'm going to go in with a wash immediately after this. That's looking pretty good, pretty impressive. And just dab the blue on the belt with the sponge there, and then toned it back a little bit with some metallic here. Just adding a bit more metal, so that it's not too blue, and there we go. So with a dot filter, the idea is to just add some randomness to your streaks, a little bit of color variation, make it look very weathered. So, in a semi-pattern with a bit of randomness, I'll dab these dots on over the model. I'm just going one color at a time here. A little heavy with some of the dabs, but trying to go light in how I space it out. Okay, so it's looking a bit like a circus act right now with all the polka dots everywhere. But this is just when you trust the process. I've seen that typically you use white spirits for something like this. And I actually don't have any white spirits kicking around. But I figure if it's the alcohol that's doing the trick in kind of blending this paint here and breaking it apart, then the exact opposite of white spirits, dark beer, should work. So I have a dark ale, and we'll see. Maybe this will be the end of the model, or maybe this will be a really neat look to it. So don't do that. Definitely use white spirits for the proper product, because the colors didn't blend as much as just becoming like a brown mess. But I did get some streaks. It did sort of work. I just wanted more coloration in them. I'm just gonna let this dry overnight though, try to get that little bit of green oil I missed there. And otherwise, yeah, I'm not gonna do this the whole thing like I had originally planned. Maybe next time. Okay, new day and new set of eyes looking at this. Actually pretty happy with this. I really do wish there was more color in the streaks, but I think my game plan's changed a little bit, and since the oil filtering didn't work out due to my lack of materials right now, I will go in the back at least and add a little bit of off-green, very watered down acrylic, just running down here. First I'm going to do a black wash on the parts that really need black. So these recesses, the grooves in between these hoses, probably the whole front panel will get black on it, the joints and the belt, maybe the little shoulder joints here, and then I will go in, layer maybe a little bit more chipping over the wash. I'll basically achieve a semi-dot filtering effect without all the fancy colors by putting a little bit of brown and black oil. Sorry, these are ink washes actually. I thought these were oil for the longest time, but these are ink washes. Mr. Weathering Color. And so I'm thinking black in the lowest recesses and the greasiest spots, and brown basically all over the model. And then hopefully there will be some variation in the streaks there. So starting with the black here, I shook this up. There's pigment at the bottom. I have a metal ball in here. This ink wash is very, very transparent. You might have to build it up a bit if you want a lot of black. Also, I know Tamiya panel liner can mess up plastic. Not too sure what ink can do to it, so I've never really had a problem with this stuff though. And this is basically, I don't know what Nuln oil is made out of. I don't know if that's an actual oil wash or if that's also an ink wash, but this stuff feels a little bit better to me to use than Nuln oil for this sort of application. It streaks more. Nuln oil kind of stays where you put it, and this stuff spreads around when you clean it up, which is the effect that we want. I do want to be a bit careful about staining. Since this is ink, it does stain pretty heavy, so I'll probably clean it up a little bit before even the actual cleanup. And it doesn't mix with water. You know, you water your brush and it doesn't even come off, so just wipe that off onto a saw. It's very easy to get all over your hands, and very easy to fingerprint as well, so remember where you're applying it. And I'm just cleaning up around the joint here so I don't have too much pooling. right where I don't want it. It seems like I'm not really fingerprinting that oil in the back anymore, which is good. But if this oil does, or this ink does get to my hands too much, and then I touch a different part of the model, it'll absolutely add a fingerprint to that part of the model with the ink, so you do want to be a bit careful there. But you can see that is bringing out the blacks in between the recesses of this belt here. I feel like that this is an important part we want to get nice and dirty. So this is just an impression. This is where the streaks are going to come from. And just really trying to tell a story with the streaking. Where is it coming from? How long has it been there? Where is it still stuck and gunked up? That sort of stuff. You know, where would they actually reach and clean? Where wouldn't get cleaned? Now with some extremely watered down green paint, since my dot filtering didn't work out, I want to just try to add some discoloration streaks of green, like how when metal has water streaking down it enough, it'll start to discolor. And a really transparent effect that I'm going for. And honestly, I don't really think it even ends up showing up, but maybe if I went back in with it again after the wash. And there is my kid up from his nap with his hand, putting his grubby paws on the grubby model, mugging for the camera. Definitely going places. So I figured there'd be a lot of dirt in between the fingers, so I'll build up a little on there. Right in this crevice here, there'd be a decent amount of dirt. This might be horrifying too if you don't like to be so liberal with this stuff, but I don't see why not, you know. Just getting these panels here, using it as a panel liner as well. Except for this is actually a lot easier to clean up than traditional panel liner, I would say. Some along the bottom there. These guys. Like I said, this stuff has a tendency to stain, so on this light green, especially since it's matte and pretty bumpy, I wouldn't want to leave it for too long. Just want to make sure I got everywhere that I want, so that I only really have to do 2 applications of this. Exact same way we did last time. Just a wet sock, wring it out a little bit, and go to town, moving it in the way that you want the streaks, or if there is somewhere you don't want it, just rub it off completely. Damn, that is grimy. Look how grimy that is. And just keep going until you get what you want. Okay, so we definitely don't want this much on the back, so we're really getting it wet. The whole surface of the model, just kind of soaking it with a wet sock. That's a perk of being divorced, is I can do stuff like this. And sometimes with the dirty part of the sock, you can even go back in and get it back dirty if you cleaned it up too much with the ink that's still on the sock. And since I'm using the inside of the sock, it has inherent sort of almost a brush, random texture. Here I'm using some dry sock just to really put some elbow grease into it. And I just want to make sure I'm not pulling away in a direction where it wouldn't make sense for a streak to be. But already, that's looking pretty good. Bring some more of this off. Just so it doesn't look so uniform, and there looks like there's slightly cleaner bits and slightly dirtier bits. If the whole thing looks dirty, then none of it does. I don't really want that much up top, because I figure when it surfaces up out of the water, all of the dirt will kind of come running down it, not stay on the top of the board, right? Yeah, I like that. That looks cool. And I mean, honestly, this is basically just the same process as washing dirt or grease off. This is maybe why I thought it was oil at first. I've worked in a lot of kitchens and this stuff behaves similarly to trying to scrub grease off with water. It moves with the water, streaks with the water, clings to your towel a little bit, but ultimately doesn't actually mix with water, so therefore is not great to clean up with just a wet cloth. But that's the idea here. We don't want to clean all of it up. We want to streak it. We want it to be nasty. And here I think we can streak some downwards, right? Because like dirt running down this side of the claw there, and then up the top of the claw, and yeah, pulling the dirt up from those fingers instead of towards the edge. This is a pretty fun part of the build. Once I started doing this to a lot of my models, I used to do only really clean paint jobs because I was afraid of weathering. Or over weathering, and now it's honestly a very fulfilling part. It's kind of when everything comes together in a way. For me at least, it's when I start liking my work a lot more, is when it starts getting really, really nasty and weathered. Night and day from when I started this thing. Even just for the video, not even out of box years ago. And yeah, the shoulders, I guess I'm not too worried about, because they do have those panels over it. So this is the foam here. Kind of just put a random streak across to add a little bit more coming down as I streak it. Dirty, dirty, dirty. And I don't think it would fall in a straight line. It would most likely fall with the curve, so bringing yourself with the curve as much as you can. Since it's a little bit close to the first chipping color, some of them almost look like scratches too, some of the streaks, so I'm fine with that. That looks pretty nice. Just make sure that my fingerprint isn't there, and it is, so it's just kind of smudge that while I still have the time. Since this one doesn't have a decal, I figured I'd make it just a little bit dirtier than the other side, just for visual interest. So this ink can actually stain decals, so I left it sitting just above the decal. And that way I can drag it and clean it as much as I want after. And honestly, that ink that I left there did stain and discolor just below the stars there, it seems, so I do dig that. Also, I figured they can pull off these front panels just like I can, right? So they can probably pull them off and clean them a little bit more often than the rest of the Kapool. And just kind of like make sure that I'm comparing them, because it'd be a shame if one, you know, looks way dirtier than the other side. That would look a bit weird. I got a fingerprint in there as I was comparing them, so just keeping a close eye. I wish this stuff dried a bit faster, but maybe you could take a hairdryer to it. I wouldn't probably risk it, but honestly, it's just ink, I believe, so it shouldn't be the end of the world if you did. I feel like I left this stuff on a little bit too long, but I think it's good enough now. And making sure I'm going the right way too, because there's a top and a bottom to these pieces. Okay. I feel like I washed a lot of that off, but not all of it. Honestly, maybe not even enough, actually, looking at the other piece. Yeah, this is when I need to go in with some dry sock. Just kind of really give it the working. Okay, so when they're together, this side's a little bit rougher. Just clean that up a little bit more on the bottom there. Okay, but I think that's fine. Right. So I have all my ink cleaned up and my other pieces. So it's top coat time. So I'm top coated, and while that dries, the final step is just going to be some final edge highlighting and edge chipping. So we will paint up that char ball then in the meantime. So hand painting with lacquer is initially quite intimidating and can still be quite frustrating, but I have a great fondness to it due to how it dries and how versatile it is while you're using it, as well as that products go over it very well without a top coat. So essentially I load up my brush a lot more than acrylic, and since lacquer is more of a material, like I liken it to spreading around vinyl almost, I just kind of move it around the clump that I put right on the model. And since it evens out and dries so naturally, usually you don't have to worry, or you can just go back in and actually sand it off even. First layer I just want to get down. I start with the paint quite thin because the thinner dries up quite quickly. And I do use that to my advantage. So second layer I'll usually just start stippling it all over. And since it has a self-leveling effect, it's pulling up the paint I already put down there. And the paint that's being globbed on top of it is essentially just mixing with that paint underneath, and then it'll all level together. And then once that has leveled in a few minutes, a little bit longer than acrylic paint you want to wait. I would give it, close to 10 minutes. Then you can go back in and do the same, or even lightly stroke over it down again if you want a different effect. and it will kind of fill in the gaps itself, as opposed to acrylic, where you kind of, if you're missing a gap, you got to put a few layers over. With lacquer, you can kind of just glob into your missing spaces and it'll kind of level out at the end. So here I'm starting at the middle of this circular part and just stippling it outwards as it goes on. And yeah, you want to be careful if you're stroking this stuff downwards, because it really does pull up the layer beneath. So that's why the stippling really does have an advantage. And you think that this would lead to a really unnatural texture, but usually it actually does level out quite well. I am using Gaia thinner for Gaia paints. I don't have Mr. Hobby thinner, but it's always worked out fine for me. So a few more layers of that, and then we'll check back in. Alright, so as much fun as I'm having, this video can't go on forever. So this is the top coated guy here. And just going to go in an edge highlight, edge chip, add that to that. But we have this guy here to look at. I got some fingerprints on him, but I'm not too worried about it. I went in, brown washed him, and then we'll add some chipping to him too, because I messed up that decal a bit. The nice thing about symmetry is that if you see one side, you know what the other side looks like. He's going to need an eyeball as well. A little bit rough, but he's not exactly the focal point. And at this scale, totally works. Alright, just got him chipped up. And him chipped up. Wasn't really trying to add as much chipping as much as just some places of interest where the metallic would draw some light. Let's see around the rim there. The front of the cannon. Tips of the feet are where it's most noticeable that I added some. Tips of the fingers as well. I think it does bug me that for some reason the wash, even after a few layers, did go around the border of those stars. I probably should have sanded those down first. But yeah, lesson learned. And from a little further back, it's not the end of the world. Although it's kind of obvious, but just pretend they're newer stars, or Sochi scrubbed them down. Man, close, that's really looking nice. I also painted this base for this guy matte black, and then just splashed paint on it with a paintbrush, the lightest metallic I had, to kind of give the impression of stars. Alright, so here we have my friend's pool. This is right out of the box, some panel lining on here. I think also a gloss top coat, but man, is that a gloss. Holy crap, sorry ring light, Jesus Christ, let's see. I mean, it's nice. And this is the final result. About maybe, what, 6 layers of weathering or something all together. baby boy. Gotta give a while for these eyes to dry, so I'm not gonna put it straight up into ball mode or anything right now. Not for a little bit, but yeah, honestly, this was a lot of fun to do. Huge editing process, honestly, a little bit crazy there. Maybe next time I'll break them into parts, but judging on my Subo video, I don't think a lot of people are dying for turn A stuff, so you know, except for me. If you have any questions about anything I've done, or just want to tell me I did a bad job or anything like that, just, yeah, leave a comment. Feel free to hit me up. I definitely appreciate you guys watching this. And let's see your guys' pools. Right? Thanks a bunch, guys. Take care.